All right, so welcome everybody to today's live stream. My name is Mark Cecchini from Compound, and I'm joined by Jamie and Matt from Team Blair Tahoe, and we're gonna give them a chance to introduce themselves, and I'll talk a little bit about myself and Compound and what we do for clients. But first, just want to welcome everybody to this live stream. We'll be talking about buying a second property, specifically in the Tahoe area, kind of different financial considerations, different considerations in the home buying process, what it's like to buy a second property specifically in this area, and just other general considerations around what it's like to have a vacation home, a mixed use property, purely a vacation rental, those sorts of things. So with that being said, Jamie, Matt, would love to have each of you kind of go through your individual backgrounds and then talk a little bit about your company and your team.
Yeah, I'll go first. Jamison Blair here with Team Blair Tahoe. I've been in the real estate business since 1997. My mom started a boutique brokerage here in Lake Tahoe. We cover from the West Shore of Lake Tahoe, Incline, South Lake, Reno. So we cover the entire area. We joined Compass Real Estate we're the founding members. We started about 5 years ago. And I've been doing it pretty much my whole life. I'm one of the only people I know in real estate that this is their only job. This is the only job they've ever had. So that's kind of unique. It's been a family run company, and Matt's got a similar scenario on a different side of the lake, and you can go from there.
Yeah, my name's Matt Schorr. I've been in real estate for roughly 10 years, grew up in Zephyr Cove. Similar to Jamie, my family has a very similar backstory. My mom and my uncle started a little boutique firm over on the Nevada side of the lake in Zephyr Cove that grew to be around the entire lake with 3 or 4 offices. And I've been up here the last few years, lived down in the Bay Area for a while, sold real estate down there for about 5 years, got my feet wet, and then came to Lake Tahoe, met with Jamie and the team, and decided to take it from there. And it's been great. We do cover the entire Tahoe region, including Reno.
Great.
Yeah, I'll kind of jump a little bit further into that. We've got 6 brokers or 6 real estate agents around that cover each area, from buyer's agents to listing specialists. My wife, Nicole, is a practicing real estate attorney. She's kind of the head of everything here. She's not on the call today, but Matt and I kind of run buyers, sellers, cover the entire basin. So hopefully we can have some things to share and some things to add that people might not know about when buying here in Lake Tahoe.
Great. Yeah, thank you very much both for that introduction, and look forward to learning a lot myself about the region and what it's like to buy a property there right now. Really quick on myself. So my name is Mark Cecchini. I'm an advisor here at Compound. We are a full service family office for tech founders, tech employees, venture capital investors. So what that means is we not only have a technology platform that's built for tracking your finances, managing your investments, tracking your private investments, tax planning, private markets, really from top to bottom. And then we also have a full-fledged wealth management offering and family office structure with financial advisors, tax advisors, investment advisors, and really a full team behind our clients to help sort out all of the implications that people in the tech ecosystem deal with every day. And one of those is often looking for a second or third property, and how to manage those financial considerations, what to look for when buying a property, how to, sort of prepare yourself for those kind of additional financial responsibilities. And Compound is a Series B tech company. We're really excited to be working with great partners across real estate, insurance, tax, and other sort of partnerships. So that's a little bit about us, and I'll give a little bit more of a plug towards the end of the call about how folks can get involved with us. Great. So let's dig into your guys' side a little bit, if you don't mind. Would love to hear a little bit from you about what it's like in Tahoe, the Tahoe region right now. So tell us a little bit about what's going on in the region from a real estate perspective.
So from a timing perspective, we had a huge winter, this giant winter. So we're seeing a stall in some of the inventory that's coming on. Normally the life cycle is we see a lot of inventory coming on after the ski leases get let out. So right now, mid-April, we start seeing ski leases get let out. We start seeing more and more inventory come on, but it's going to be delayed a bit because of this big winter. We still have tons of snow on the ground. People are repairing houses. So right now, the inventory is not huge, but we will start seeing more and more inventory as we get into to May, June, and we'll see it all come in, mid-June. So that's the kind of life cycle. From a how many places are selling standpoint, we're seeing an influx of buyers, especially in the, let's call it a lower price point is $1 million. That's kind of the entry level. Then the slower section right now is between the real deals for buyers are between the 3 million mark and the, let's say 5.5. You start to see a lot more inventory, and a lot of these sellers are discounting a bit. So that's where we're seeing a slow feed right now. Got anything
Great.
on that? Yeah.
That's great summary.
And before we go any further, for someone like me who's actually never been to Tahoe, tell us a little bit about the region and what draws people to the area. What is there to do there? I know a little bit just from seeing it online, but tell us a little bit about the area.
You got this one?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, if you've never been to Tahoe, every season throughout the entire year, there's something to do, whether you're into water sports, downhill skiing, biking. It's essentially an outdoor enthusiast dream. This lake is it's split across two separate states. So we have half the lake is in Nevada and the other half is in California. In the region, I believe there's 7 or 8 world-class ski resorts, boating throughout the entire summer, beautiful beaches. It's really a place that is, it's taken a lot of people's hearts, and they're just really, really love being up here. It's a phenomenal place to live. It's sunny practically 300 days a year. This last winter, we did get an enormous amount of snow, but for anybody that lives up here, had a great time outside and been able to do as much as you possibly can to really enjoy the area.
And then we see our clients are normally it's young families that want to raise their children in this kind of environment, especially for the second home environment. You've got skiing, biking, just the outdoor experience. And then the other side is more of the grandparent age who has adult children who want to bring the whole family back together, because everybody loves Tahoe, and you'll have Christmas, New Year's. It's a gathering spot. So those are the two kind of pieces to our clientele that really outdoor people. And then the rental side of things too, which we'll get into a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. Makes a lot of sense, and it's definitely high on my list to visit one day. So with that being said, kind of what are the hot neighborhoods in Tahoe? What sort of are the most desirable areas where you might be looking at higher prices, or just how is that developing in and around the area?
So we've got a few different areas. The lakefront community is probably the highest price. That's directly on the lake. Something with a pier is going to be the starting points between, say, $10 million for something great, all the way up to the highest sale that's been about 60. And then there's a couple things that have been listed at the 70 million mark, which are incredible. But that I'd say is the highest and most desirable. Then you've got all these great golf course communities. You've got ski resort communities. But diving into some of the golf course communities, you've got Lahontan, Schaefer's Mill, and Martis Camp on the California side. And then on the East Shore and the Nevada side, there's some great. The Clear Creek has a great golf course community, Glenbrook, and these are areas that have built-in amenities. You've got the pool, everything's great for the kids. You've got entertainment for the kids. You've got golf course, and those are kind of the hot markets between 3 million and 6. Martis Camp, you have 6 million to 10. Up to 15 now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and these are all amenities-based communities. The great thing about the Martis Camp community that I'm speaking of, it's gated. It's got a private lift up to North Star, so you don't have to drive to park. It's the most convenient thing. That the shuttle can come pick you up and take you to the ski lift. That's only for Martis Camp owners. So that's a real perk. That has competed with these lakefront markets where people are looking at the lakefronts, and they don't necessarily get the nicest property, but it is on the location's amazing. If they don't like that, then we take them to Martis Camp, and the architecture there is amazing. It's brand new. Everything's universally nice. The amenities community, it's incredible. So those are the two main areas. And
yeah.
Forgetting anything on that?
I would just touch on the seasonality between the different neighborhoods. So we do have a lot of ski resorts up here. So during the winter and heading into the spring is when you see more listings come on around North Star, around Palisades. those areas, there's a lot more inventory at this point in time than we'll see throughout the summer. For the lakefront communities, it's typically rare to see a lot of lakefront inventory in the winter, just because the main advantage of being on the water is being able to have your boat in and enjoy the sandy beaches that a lot of them come with. So we're gearing up towards the point of the year where, one, we have a lot of water in the lake after this enormous winter, which is great. Most of the piers are usable, and we're expecting a flood of inventory around the lake for any lakefront homes. And Truckee and Marta's Camp, as Jamie was just talking about, it's pretty active year round, given that it is a beautiful golf course community in the summer. And then in the winter, you have access to North Star and a lot of those other resorts nearby.
Yeah, and for the lakefront community, Matt and I like to show these properties via the boat. You want to see it from driving, but then to go by boat and to be able to show up on the pier, walk that way. That's the lifestyle people are looking for the lakefront community. And to be able to show that with Matt's got a great boat. We go out and take the clients out for a whole day and really get the whole feel for it. And it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that sounds great. It's really sounds like a special experience down there, and I'm sure not typical in terms of the home showing process, where you can see a home from a boat and just have that special experience and seeing a potential property that you're going to buy from that vantage point. That's pretty unique to that area, I would assume.
Yeah, and then some, like you said, we've got a full lake. The lake's totally full. Last year we had the drought kind of year where some of these piers weren't in the water, so we couldn't actually access by the boat. And that's one of the things to look for. Does it have a pier? Is the pier in the deep water? And is it usable? Because some of these are only usable, 2 years out of 10, two of the good years. So those are some of the things that we like to point out, like, what could potentially go wrong with the property? What's the negative of it? That's kind of the way we work, is pointing out some of the positive, not just the positives, but the negatives too. Great.
And so before we get into some of the financial sort of planning elements of whether or not you should consider a home like this, last question I had was, it sounds like people from the Bay Area are starting to relocate to Reno and the Nevada side of Lake Tahoe. So talk a little bit about that development in terms of where people are coming in from and why they're choosing to look in that area.
A big advantage to moving towards the Nevada side of Lake Tahoe or towards Reno or Gardnerville is primarily taxes. I mean, it's a beautiful area as well. A lot of folks love that it's a little bit quieter, but in regards to there's no state income tax, which is great. California side of the lake, it's quite a bit more expensive. And then also property taxes are much, much lower. The big thing to consider when you're purchasing a home on the Nevada side of the lake, if you are trying to target a lower tax basis, you're really going to want to try to find a home that's older. A new construction home on the Nevada side is going to be taxed relatively similar to a home on the California side. But if you find a gorgeous home that's fully remodeled but built in 1950, you'll be able to keep that much lower tax basis. So that's been attracting a lot of people over to the Nevada side of the lake, and then Reno as well. And at the end of the day, Reno is only about 45 minutes to Truckee. It's pretty close if you look around the West Coast at different ski communities. And if you're in Denver or Utah, that for the most part, you do have an hour to a 2-hour drive before you can get to the mountains. Where in Reno or Gardnerville, you're 30 or 45 minutes from some of your favorite ski resorts, and you do have that favorable tax status.
And it may even be closer than some of these far out areas within Tahoe. If you have to go up a big hill and you're at the top of a hill, to drive from Reno, it's just as fast to get to the ski resorts as some of these nice little areas around here. So Reno's been a big kind of a newer venture for us. And we're seeing a lot of more full-timers go there, especially full-timers with high net worth. They're trying to get in and save on their taxes, because essentially the house they're buying is getting paid for by the taxes they're saving. So it's been an interesting time.
Absolutely. And I would add, as someone who's been in the tax prep world and knows how aggressive California can be from a tax perspective, it's very important, if you're going to sever those ties and want to become an official Nevada resident, have your primary residence there are steps to take in terms of establishing permanent residency in Nevada, that being an income tax free state, and just making sure that you change your residency, you go to the DMV right away. There's a number of steps to take to just make sure that there's no confusion whether or not you're still a California resident from a tax perspective. And a lot of our clients have equity. And so if you've earned equity while you're in California, there's some clawback provisions. And it tends to be very sticky in terms of what California will tax, but certainly recommend speaking with a tax professional when it comes to those sort of issues.
But to that point, it's important to have kind of a team together to where you have, you've got all this advice from the financial standpoint, and we can bring in the advice from the real estate side. I think it's worked well with us together. But it's kind of important to make sure you consult the right people and have the right team in place. And I think all of us together can really offer that program.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to flip the script a little bit, and you guys are going to interview me for a little bit.
Yeah, I think one of my main things is if you could talk to us a bit about some of the tax advantages to renting, some of the places that you need to apply for the rental, and what some of those constrictions are, or some of the issues are there. If you could expand on that, because everybody we have is either a 1031 buyer, they want to rent the property. So if you can put some light to that, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So first, I think the 1031 exchange is a great topic. Just kind of expand on a little bit. So 1031 exchange, for those on the call who don't know, is essentially a tax-free exchange of one property. Can't be your primary residence. It has to be a secondary residence. But taking that property, and upon sale, you're rolling the proceeds and thus deferring the capital gain into another property essentially immediately. There's quite a few rules in terms of how to roll that in, how to identify the replacement property within a certain time period. But basically, you're sort of kicking the can down the road in terms of when that capital gain will be realized. And so if you're buying another property, those proceeds will roll, the capital gain will be deferred. And then you can choose how to structure that new property, whether it's going to be primarily a rental property that you're not going to use for personal reasons. That's one way. And the short-term rental exclusion, I think, is something that not everyone realizes, where if you rent out a property for less than 15 days in total for the year, actually none of that income is taxable to you at all. So think about, a short-term event where you can, earn a lot of short-term rental, but that's all you use it for, just maybe one weekend or a few week period in the year. The caveat with that is then you can't write off expenses against that income. So because the income is not being taxable, you cannot use expenses to write off against that income. So that's just for a short term, less than 15 days in a calendar year. If it's going to be a mixed use property, that means you rent it for more than 14 or 15 days a year, and you're personally using it for more than 15 days a year, or 10% of the rental days. And so there's different rules for kind of which deductions you can use on your Schedule A, which is your itemized deductions, versus Schedule E, which is your rental real estate and pass-through income. We have things like passive activity rules that come into play. So it gets very nuanced very quickly. But I think the key is to work with your CPA and make sure that they're structuring the rental properly, that you know exactly how much you want to use it for the year, or approximately. It tends to become clear very quickly in terms of, will this be a primary use vacation home for you and your family? Will it be a mixed use, or will it be essentially primary, not a primary, but exclusively a rental property that you're renting out to other individuals? So those are kind of the three main flavors of that. The other one is, how many days a year do you use it for personal? And there's some gray area in terms of whether you're working on it or doing repairs versus actually using the property and living there for your own kind of pleasure use. So that the IRS has very clear rules on sort of that bifurcation of time.
Gotcha. Thank you, Mark.
That's good info. Yeah, we tend to see people that want to rent it, but they also want to use it. So it sounds like the middle strategy would probably be the best on that. And it sounds like there's some tax benefits to that too. So
absolutely. And the one thing I didn't mention was depreciation. And so there are things that you can depreciate on a property that's used for rental or vacation home that you can't do with your primary residence. And so depreciation is essentially taking the useful life of an asset and depreciating it, or writing off that kind of useful life over a number of years. It's typically 27.5 years. But there's things like modified accelerated depreciation and cost segregation that are a bit more complicated sort of tax concepts. Cost segregation actually would require a study, and there's a lot of things that have to go into that. But you can accelerate the depreciation and write off the value of the property in certain pieces inside the property, like appliances that are used for rental and that sort of thing, on a more accelerated schedule. And so that can offset income. But again, a lot of nuanced rules around there. And definitely recommend speaking with a CPA who knows that sort of space.
Gotcha. Big question we had for you is, in your opinion, how do you know when a client, when you can afford to purchase a second home? What items do you consider when you're helping clients decide if this is the right move for them?
Absolutely. It's a great question. I think not dissimilar to a normal home purchase, right? For primary residence, it's, do you have kind of the capital source to make, a fairly large down payment, right? You mentioned that $1 million is sort of the entry point for the Lake Tahoe area. So, most lenders would want to see you put at least 10%, probably floating upwards of 15, 20% into that sort of down payment, just because it's not as secure as a primary residence mortgage. There's a second loan attached to you now as an individual. So they want to see a little bit more skin in the game up front. So do you have the capital? Would you have to sell assets to make that down payment? And where is that coming from? We don't want to necessarily overexpose ourselves to real estate, particularly single use or kind of single property real estate, which is not as diverse as a REIT, for example, which has hundreds or potentially thousands of properties. And so that is one big thing I look at, is just capital sources. Of course, you can borrow against your primary residence in the form of a HELOC or a cash out refi, potentially use those funds to purchase a second property. But again, you want to be very careful of your debt to income ratio, how much your debt service will be. You may not have two mortgages, right? One primary residence, one secondary. And then of course the cost of carry. So what some people don't really account for typically is, the cost of the insurance on the property, the cost of maintenance, property management fees, just turnaround fees. If you're doing short-term rentals, you probably have to pay for a company to kind of turn that unit around every other weekend or every week. And so you just have to factor in all those monthly costs. And when you factor that into your other goals and financial planning objectives, we want to make sure that doesn't negatively impact your long-term financial plan. So that's a big sort of red flag. If you can't put all those numbers together and make those work, would definitely recommend pushing off that second home property, at least until you can satisfy both the capital requirements and the ongoing cash flow requirements.
Good.
Awesome. Another question we have is, how do you think about taxation of the second home? Do you try to push your clients for maybe a property on the Nevada side of the lake, or it's just client specific?
Yeah, very client specific. I think there's a number of clients that will have, certain tax situations. So they may still have a large cash compensation through a W-2 job. They may have other sort of K-1 investments. So K-1 is simply a statement of partnership income. So a lot of our clients in the tech community have K-1 investments in angel investments or venture capital or private equity. And so all those things flow through on Schedule E of your tax return, which will interact with however your rental income and expenses are flowing through. So there's a lot of variables that go into someone's tax return, but for a property like this that we're talking about, I think definitely the state that it's in matters a lot. The property taxes, like you mentioned, Matt, there's difference between when the home was built and the tax assessment that will be made on that property and how that folds into the mortgage payment or escrow if they're paying monthly. So all those things matter a lot. And I think sometimes people have the misconception that as soon as they buy a rental, they're going to have all these losses to write off, other things, and it's going to be this great tax sort of haven for them. And it's not always the case, particularly depending on how the home is taxed from a mixed use versus rental versus primary vacation home perspective.
Okay. One more form.
No, that was it for, that's the only questions that we have.
Okay. I think for now, that's what we have for you.
Sounds good. So I'll turn it around for you in terms of what you're seeing on sort of the property insurance side, just with that area. What specific issues is that area dealing with from a property and casualty insurance perspective?
So we are seeing some high fees for these. So we're all on a high fire zone. Everywhere in Lake Tahoe is a high fire zone. So we're seeing a difficulty in getting insurance. And it's interesting because it costs a little bit less if you live on a golf course, or say there's some buffer in between your house and the forest. My personal favorite place to buy would be right on the national forest or right on the edge of a forest, but that's where the highest deductibles come from, the highest insurance rates come from, because you don't have any buffer. So there's also the California Fair Plan that only goes up to $3 million for replacement costs. And if you have a $6 million house and only $3 million in replacement costs, you have to come up with that difference somewhere, and that's caused some issues. We've also seen issues on shake shingle roofs. Some of these deals don't close because they won't insure on a shake shingle roof, which has probably never had a problem in its 30 years of being, being a great roof and held up much better than some of these other ones, but they don't like to see it because it's a fire issue. So it's definitely something to consider. It's one of those hidden costs that you don't quite anticipate. And then there's also the fear factor. We get into contract, they try to get ready to get the insurance, and they're like, oh, nobody covers anything there. And if you hear it over and over, you start to think, whoa, do I need to worry about something here? And then it's so different on the Nevada side, even though we're so close, it just, it's a different policies there. So if you want to kind of jump into that.
Yeah, a lot of the called environmental policies on the Nevada side of the lake are not as strict. So this last summer, a lot of the forest, I don't want to call it clear cut, but they definitely thinned it out quite a bit in high fire danger zones around power poles in order to try to keep those premiums lower in general. On the Nevada side of the lake, you'll find insurance is probably 3 times more expensive on the California side. Let's put it that way. And that doesn't matter if you do border national forest land or if you are right on the lake itself. The premiums are drastically lower along with most other costs. But what comes with all of the taxation benefits that you have on the Nevada side of the lake and the lower premiums when it comes to insurance, the cost of the homes in general is a lot higher. It's hard to say exactly how much higher, but let's call it 50 to 75% higher for the most part. A home that's on the same home on the Nevada side of the lake,
especially in Incline Village. And look, there's been some fire scares. We feel like a lot of these people say, hey, can we cut down the trees for the view or something like that? It's definitely a no-no, but we've seen the fire department have a little bit more leeway when it comes to thinning, when it comes to thinning down for, to get more sunlight and things like that, because it's safer. Obviously, you're never going to be able to cut down big giant trees or anything like that, but I feel like it's gotten a little bit more lenient to make some space for yourself and to make sure you have a good defensible space. And that's one of the point of sale requirements, is to get a defensible space right off. There's only a few point of sale things in Lake Tahoe. One's the sewer and the other one's for defensible space, because look, there's been fires nearby, but I think California is the most scared because they've had fires throughout. So that's just one topic of many to try to wrap your head around.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. And for someone who's going through the primary home buying process right now, I can tell you how invaluable it is to have an agency that knows the area super well, because of all these things, right, that are very specific to that area, that region, whether it's tax assessments or property insurance considerations, or just when to buy and what the considerations are for, the other things that, of home ownership that may not become apparent until you're living there, like, snow removal and all these things of which side of the lake to live on. So that's great. And I think the one other thing I would add from a financial planning perspective is, really looking at whether or not you're going to use this home for personal use or really as an investment property. Because I think we have frameworks to use. If you take an individual property, put it into a spreadsheet analysis or another tool, you can start to become fairly aware of how the investment might perform, right? You can use kind of a fair value estimate of rent, your expenses, sort of seasonality, accounting for vacancy, and that sort of thing. And if you're looking to and use it as a pure investment property, we have to kind of measure the opportunity cost of the rate of return on that property, the cap rate, and sort of what you might be able to get even today in a savings account or a treasury bill or kind of a risk-free asset. And so if you're using it as pure investment, there's certainly tools for evaluating that. But of course, we have to weigh that if you're using it for your own personal use or maybe even moving there permanently, that personal utility from the property in that area far outweighs oftentimes the investment considerations. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and it's funny because you can go through the numbers and you can go through all that, but ultimately what we see with our buyers is this is a lifestyle choice. Mm-hmm. This is a family improvement choice. Like the number of people I've had that have had their kids, after 27 years in the business, I've seen people raise their kids are adults, their kids are having kids. And I talk to some of my clients and they're like, those are the best years of my life to have this vacation spot. Everybody would go there. Some of our best memories are there. So to me, that it's the emotional part of it, and the return is, yes, it's financial, and yes, it's usually pretty good on that, but how much does this benefit your family? How much is this a lifestyle choice? And this place is great. Like, to me, this is it's a no-brainer to purchase up here because it's going to improve your lifestyle on a lot of different levels. So I see your financial side of things, but I'm more of the emotional. That to me is like raising your family here. And I had the good fortune of being raised here, being able to ski all the time, and just it's a beautiful place.
Agreed. And trust me, I weigh in on my client situations all the time and say, if this feels right, this is that let's consider both the financial and non-financial implications equally, if not more so towards the non-financial, right? Because life is short and we want to be able to enjoy the hard-earned fruits of our labor. So that's a good kicking off point though, for you all to kind of walk me through the process. If I'm a buyer today and I say, hey, Team Blair, I'd love to look at properties in Tahoe. What does the process look like? Length of time? What does it look like on your side?
So I'll jump into this, and let's pretend it's right now, right after this big snowstorm. There's not much inventory. You're saying to me, hey, there's not much inventory. Why should I come up now to look? I think to look and see where the snow still is in comparison to where the sunny side of the street is, or if you're on the West Shore versus the North Shore, just to see where the snow loads are at this point. I think it's a good time to start. Then we go through the process. We look at a few houses here. Yeah, I like this one, but I don't like that one. Narrow down an area that you want to focus in. That way, when the property comes up and when the inventory comes on, I can call and say, hey, this is something that really fits the bill based on what we've seen already from you and what you like. You should come up and see this. We're not pushy by any means, but when we see something that you like and that we know it's going to work for you, usually we do a video walkthrough, point out the pros and the cons, and then they come up. And then, let's say you write an offer today and it gets accepted. You usually have 17-day inspection, which is a little different from the Bay Area. Most Bay Area buyers are used to, oh, do we need to be non-contingent? Do we need to? It's a little different here. You usually get 17-day inspection, which is really important. We've got the greatest inspectors around. They're all pretty harsh, which is what we want to put. We want you to know everything that's wrong with the house so that in 17 days, you're not making your mind up the day you write the offer. You're making your mind up at day 17 or 21, whenever the inspections come up. Okay, I've done my due diligence. I know this property. I'm excited about it. I'm ready to move forward. So that's the nice piece. And then we're there for, I get calls all the time. Hey, do you have somebody who's a painter? Do you have, we're here clients kind of for life. And that's basically the way it goes.
Yeah. And one thing I wanted to touch on as well is, depending on how long it takes a buyer to get into contract, one depends on how much experience they have buying real estate, how familiar they are with the area. And the other important aspect of coming up and understanding the areas and being ready when the time comes is our biggest constraint in Lake Tahoe is a lack of inventory. There's not that many homes for sale. Folks that end up moving here or have this as a second home or a vacation home typically really do love it. There's a few that are moving out. I think this year in particular, we'll find maybe more of the baby boomer generation that just was upset with the amount of snow that we've received.
Too much snow.
And this shoveling and just the constant maintenance that was required, might decide to move either down to the valley to Reno or Gardnerville, or maybe over to Sacramento. But throughout the summer, let's say if you're focused on Rubicon for an area and you really want to view property, you might only have one or two shots throughout the whole summer to find that home that fits the bill. So really being prepared up front, I think, is incredibly important to make sure that you can utilize your time best and find the property that you really do like.
Yep.
Outstanding. And, not to put you on the spot, but do you have in the last few years a particular success story of a client finding a house that comes to mind, with anonymized data, of course, or information? Tell us a little bit about a recent kind of success that you've had and how that process worked for them and their considerations.
Dan
Which Dan?
at the golf course community in.
Oh yeah. So we had a client that was actually relocating from Wyoming, wanted to be in a low tax state, reached out to us, showed him everything we could in incline, focused primarily only on the East Shore because that's the only Nevada side of the lake. We were able to, so we looked at everything we could find in incline. They have a really special property in Wyoming. Ultimately decided that they really want to build their own custom house, given that they have a large family and that's what they're used to. So after touring throughout incline, we went into the new community called Clear Creek Tahoe, which is a gorgeous golf course community. There's very few golf course communities that you find here in Northern Nevada. That one in particular is rated the second best golf course. Gorgeous 1 to 2 acre lots that all focus the views directly on either golf course views or right up at the Sierra Mountains. So after about 4 or 5 months, we were able to find them a great lot, purchase the lot, and then they were able to find another wonderful property on the lake on the Nevada side where they were able to live while they build their dream house at the Tahoe Beach Club.
Yeah, and we showed them 50 houses. This isn't a quick thing. It takes a while sometimes to do, and showing them all the properties. We were up to 15 million looking at some of these houses. They just weren't there. And clients with specific needs, they have what they want, and the only way to get what they want was to build something. And yeah, it's going to take 2 years, but I think he was ready and willing to do that. And he had such specific needs that he had to do to build his own thing. So that's happening, and he was very excited. So
amazing. And I might have missed it, but what season is typically best for kind of the home buying process down there? And also, what should people be considering if it's their second home versus kind of a primary residence relocation?
So the real time is summer. Summer is the biggest time to look, but it's also the time you don't see the snow. So we always like to point out, let's say when we're looking in the summer, you've got a driveway, but then your front door is 30 feet from the driveway and you have to shovel that. Like, those are things we want to bring up. So most of these houses are designed well, but sometimes you get a Bay Area architect who has this big meandering driveway, and it takes, you have all these shoveling and a bunch of metal roofs that slide into, say, your windows. So these are all things we like to point out. And I guess that's the negative of looking in the summer, because you can't tell what's going to happen in the winter. And if you have a steep driveway in a high snow zone, it can be terrifying when you drive up. Last thing you want to do is shovel after you've been driving for 2 hours or 4 hours.
Yep.
And so yeah, those are some of the things we point out. But inventory is there from June till August is probably your prime time, and that's when we make the majority of our sales.
Yeah, and to elaborate on what Jamie was speaking on, is the orientation of the home, whether it's facing south, gets the most amount of light. And typically we find that clients one of the best. Purchasing a home has great southern exposure. You'll make sure that the driveway itself doesn't have snow throughout the entire winter. And this winter in particular, and any driveways that we're facing due north, or any homes that are on the north side of the mountains, still have quite a bit of snow, and it takes a lot more maintenance. It just takes a lot more work in order to maintain those properties, and it can be a little bit colder at times too. Everybody loves a lot of natural light. Finding a property that does face south is a very, very hot commodity.
Yep.
Perfect. Appreciate that. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate your expertise, gentlemen. Where can people find you, and how would you like to kind of engage with prospective clients?
You can always give us a call, but go to teamblairtahoe.com. Look up our reviews too. We've worked really hard on maintaining a good, solid set of reviews, Google reviews. But yeah, so in our YouTube page too, you get to know us a little bit better about how we can focus on properties. But teamblairtahoe.com. We've been with Compass for 5 years. I've been around here for forever, in the business for 26 years, which is crazy to say, but we know the areas in and out, from Reno to Incline and the surrounding area. So we'd love to help you, whether you're just getting ready in the process or whether you're 10 years down the run. But we're here to help in any way we can.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And on our end, you can find us at withcompound.com. I'll put our website in the chat as well. And we really serve everyone across the spectrum of financial services, all the way from tax to investments, helping place insurance, evaluating big purchases like a real estate transaction, managing investments directly, consulting around liquidity events for tech employees. Right now, we're in the thick of it with Stripe's tender offer, which closes next Tuesday, and really, really a key resource for folks on that front. So thank you both again for your time. Really appreciate the expertise. And
Yes.
yeah,
We
thanks again.
appreciate all the help you've given us too. And, thanks for all the tax strategies. It's nice to be able to bounce ideas off you. It's been a big help for us. So thank you.
Great. We'll give it 1 minute to see if anyone has any questions. I didn't see anything come through during the presentation, but if anyone has a question, feel free to lob it in right now. If not, we'll give everyone a couple minutes back in their day. Right. Going once. Again, we're all available offline if anyone wants to reach out. Maybe if you guys want to put in your emails as well, just so they have in the chat box there. I'll put in mine right here. And this recording will be available for everyone who attended if you would like to share it around your network.
What am I doing here? Cool. All right.
Yep.
Good.
Perfect.
Thank you for your time. We really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you guys. Have a great day.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.